the symposium. I know the weather is beautiful outside. Everyone wants to be outside doing barbecues and all those activities. So thank you for coming down. A lot of people know about IHR, but I'm going to start off with, a lot of people here, they don't really know about IHR. The short story I'd like to share with you all. I remember when I was growing up, at that time I was living in Pakistan, so the light pollution obviously being very low. We would sometimes sleep on the roofs. I was 7 or 8 years old. And I would look up in the sky and, would see celestial stars everywhere. And I would go and ask my mom, where does this space begin and where does it end? Because as far as I can see stars everywhere. And obviously the obvious answer, the typical Pakistani mom would tell you, it's Allah, don't ask too much. And that's it, just keep it right? So, and then obviously, as I would ask more questions and call them naive, and I would ask them, okay, if everything is created by Allah, where is Allah? Because I can't see Allah. Where does He live? Why does He come down? Because I really want to see Him. All those questions, and obviously my mom would just, second mom would hush me down and be like, it's fine, don't ask so many questions. When you grow up, you'll know more about it. So I was going to shut up, with those kind of answers. And the point of the story is basically, we all humans are born with this natural curiosity, which is within us. And somehow when we, progress in life, we get busy with the families, with work and everything else, we just tend to lose that curiosity which is within us. And we stop asking those questions which we used to ask when we were kids, thinking they are kiddish questions. But actually they are very deep questions that we should all ponder and reflect upon. Also, alhamdulillah, we are all born Muslims. And sometimes what happens is actually we tend to take that for granted. Because, again, we don't really think about what's the purpose of us coming to this world, and why are we here, and where are we going after we die. These are almost taboo questions, especially in today's culture. So we tend to always ignore them and kind of put them in the back slot and don't really actually think about it at all. When a non-Muslim, if you would notice, would convert, or revert I should say, to Islam, they do so not because of rituals that they see Muslims doing, especially nowadays, for sure not. Right? They do so because they see reason and rationality behind it. Because the seeker within. They do so because they go out, research more about it, it kind of makes sense to them rationally, and it's reasonable. And it kind of quenches their thirst to know more. So they see Islam as a channel of discoveries. This and many other questions actually, which our Muslim Ummah, especially our youth, is facing today, with is the primary reason behind IHR's mandate, where rational people, like all you are, hopefully, can come together and are provided with a platform where we can talk about these issues in a very coherent way, and hopefully will leave a lasting impact. Without further ado, I would delve right into that presentation. It's Islam, Reason and Nature. One of our founding members, Zishan Shabazz, he'll start off with talking about reason, and then let me just, before I get into that, so the agenda, how it's going to work out today is basically we're going to have about 45 minutes to an hour of presentation. And every presentation we'll have a discussion. So discussion is not just question and answer, so we want everyone to get involved. So if somebody has a question or concern, we can talk about it as a group and see if we can come up with an answer, satisfactory answer or not. At least we'll leave something to ponder upon later on. So, Sean, it's all yours. Control.
Thank you, Ali.
Yeah.
That's the agenda, as Ali said. So at the end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A discussion. Okay, so firstly, assalamu alaikum, everyone. How's everyone doing today?
Okay.
Pretty good? I'm really impressed that you guys are in here instead of out there.
Only until 7 though.
We only got the room till 7. My part of the presentation, my part of the presentation will act as a basic reminder to myself and hopefully to all of you. So without further ado, I'll get started. Now, for the Muslim, the basis of belief, as we know, is the Qur'an. But what begs the question is, what is the basis of belief in the Qur'an? Actually, the basis of belief in the Qur'an is actually none other than reason. As the Qur'an many times emphasizes that we explain our science clearly to those who use reason. But this further begs the question, what is reason? What exactly is reason? Well, reason is nothing but an interconnected thought process. A binding thought process of logically making sense of action, things, and ideas. It's like putting a piece of a jigsaw puzzle together. Reasonable and rational thought is based on our understanding of cause and effect, as this universe is based on cause and effect. So that first picture there shows the domino effect. One domino hits the other, cause, effect, cause, effect. The other picture shows that this boy is receiving a needle, that's the cause, and the effect is pain, thus causes the boy to cry, which I've seen many times. And another example I like to use is, say a boy is standing in the middle of the road, and he sees a car fast approaching him. The boy reasons that if he does not move away from the vicinity of the car will strike him, which is the cause, and he will be injured or killed, which is the effect, which would look something like this, which you already saw. So. Now, logic is simply a formal and a systematic way of reasoning. Reason and logic does not make truth. It's simply a tool to discover what is already true. An argument in which all its premises are basically statements statements used for a truth claim. So an argument in which all its premises from which its conclusion follow are in fact true is a logically sound argument, and therefore its conclusion holds true. Now I'm going to use very simple examples to illustrate a sound logical argument. So the first argument is, and its first premise is, if it's raining, then the car is getting wet because I parked outside. The fact is, it is raining, therefore my car is getting wet. See how simple it is? The second example is, and this proves that each and every one of us is going to expire one day. So all men are mortal. First premise. Zishan Shibal is a man. That is my picture. The younger version of me. Therefore, Zishan Shibal is immortal. So that's my projected grade. I like to keep it nice and simple. Now, reason ultimately infers a prime mover to the moving universe, i.e., God. Now, if anyone's interested, we had recently completed a seminar on the proofs of God. So if anyone's interested, you can go to our Facebook site and you can check out the link for a more elaborate discussion on the proof of God. Now, interestingly, the Qur'an implies that reason has to be a prerequisite for you to even accept the Qur'an as guidance. So here, the Qur'an says, this is the book, let there be no doubt about it. It is a guidance for all the God conscious. So one has to rationally acknowledge that God is before they can even accept the Qur'an as guidance. Also, interestingly, the Qur'an makes a challenge to the reader, to the person who's making an attempt to understand the Qur'an. It tells you that have they not pondered on the Qur'an, if it were from other than the singular God, surely you would find many contradictions in it. This is quite interesting. It's making a bold challenge. So if, hypothetically speaking, objectively speaking, if there are contradictions found, it just means that the Qur'an is not from the one God you all rationally acknowledge to believe in. So in that hypothetical case, the Muslim will still remain. Another thing I like to point out is when there is any attempt to understand and read and understand the Qur'an, rationality must be employed completely. This will enable the reader to understand what is, what verses are literal and what they mean, what verses are, contextual, and also enables the reader to not take verses out of its context. Also, it points out to the minority of verses which may be allegorical. And this is an instruction that the Quran instructs itself. As the Quran says, we have made the revelations as clear proof to you if you will use your reason. So it's already given you an instruction on how to understand the Quran, which is to use your reason. Another thing I'd like to point out, the Quran makes it emphatic that usage of reason is your ticket to paradise. It is your salvation. As the Quran states, if only we had listened or used reason, we would not have ended up inmates in the burning fire. This is clearly self-explanatory. Now, a question arises. How do we foster our reason? How do we consistently apply reason in ourselves? How do we get at that higher reasoning? You know, what is the special ingredient for that? And the special ingredient is control of one's desires. It's interesting. Ali ibn Abi Talib, which is the cousin of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was quoted to have said, "The one who has no control over his desires has no control over his mind." And this is verified by the Quran. The Quran states, "Can one who stands on clear proof from his Lord be like one made attractive of his deeds, of his evil deeds, and follows his desires?" We can tie this in with the previous verse I had quoted. "We have made the revelations clear proof to you if you will use your reason." By looking at this, we have a formula to how to implement reason in our lives. So, to get to clear proof, you have to use reason, but the one who stands on clear proof is opposite to one who's into their desires. So we have a formula. Control of desires helps to soundly reason, and thus leads you to a stance on clear proof. Now, the formula is easy. It's not easy to implement. I didn't say it was easy, right? But we do have a basic and very easy to understand formula to get at that higher reason, which is consistently applying reason to yourselves. Now, I like to end my part of the presentation, and I'd like to share an example of reason tied in with human civility. Now, almost all of us use reason in a more or less capacity in our everyday lives, without thinking much of it. From crossing the street safely to starting our cars every morning. However, it's safe to say that a lot of us fail as rational beings when we neglect to use reason or discard it when we need it most. As indicated, reason is simply the logical inference of causes with their effects, or vice versa, it is the inference of perceived effects with their causes. If most human beings rigorously and consistently applied reason in dealing with themselves and with others around them, then we would be living in a very much peaceful world. Let's just look at the basic human manner of civility, or in Arabic as the adab. There is a rationale behind it. Civility is all about having regard and respect for the other. This is so because the goal is to cause a peaceful ambience and outcome. However, if we act with indifference or hostility towards the other, then this perceivably would cause feelings or actions of animosity in the other. The adage that violence begets violence is quite predictable. And lastly, I just want to finish off with a verse from the Quran, from the chapter Al-Qalam, the pen, chapter 68, verse 4. "Truly you have the best of manners." Thank you.
So our next speaker is Mr. Nadeem Haq. I'll give you a little intro, actually. I wrote it down because it's a long list here. He's a researcher and author. He has co-authored and authored 8 books, 4 philosophical fiction and 4 non-fictions. Including From Facts to Values. Copies are in the back. If anyone's interested, you can look into that as well. His specialization includes analyzing the Quran to resolve the debate questions in physics, evolution, pre-ancient history, epistemology, and consciousness. Nadeem has recently given talks at Harvard and Oxford universities, in Paris on Islam and animal welfare, and most recently he was in Poland giving a presentation at the European Society for the Study of Science and Theology conference. He's a grandson of Hafiz B. al-Masri, who did a pioneering work about animals in Islam. Nadeem has a continued research in this field, and he's also by profession a civil engineer. So Nadeem, up.
So my topic is going to cover the Quran, reason and nature, probably the necessary unity. And hopefully by the end of the seminar, you'll understand why we put this as a subtitle, the necessary unity. The Quran and some traffic lights, Lishan likes those, reasoning. And this is my favorite scientist, Newton. So, we have some key questions that need to be answered, and the first one is there a conflict between science and religion? What is the relationship between Quran, reason, and science or nature? Are reason and science compatible with the Quran? If they are, what is the proof of compatibility? If there is compatibility, what are the implications? So we'll, inshallah, we'll go through all these. So the basic agenda is we're going to look into the perceptions of the science and religion conflict. And note that I put it in quotes, and there's a reason for that, which you'll realize in due course. So is there such a divide? Is there such a conflict? The Quran is the main source. What evidence do we have from it concerning nature?